We have today the feast day of St. Nicholas Owen, but I understand we're going to keep it in this school a little later. But he's a very well chosen patron of one of your house teams, or one of your school teams. Very often when there's something very, very good, lots of people don't like it. And sometimes when this is done on a national scale, it's called persecution. You may remember that in the early days of the Christian church, Christians were persecuted by the Romans. This is sometimes because when there's a change in religious practice or religious understanding, sometimes people can't accept new ways of doing things. Sometimes can't accept new ways of very important teachings. And this is what happened in the days of St. Nicholas Owen. He lived in the time of the persecution of Catholics in this country. There were three rulers, two kings and one queen, who embraced a new way of doing things, set aside things and practices that had always been taught, that people knew about. Some could accept these new ideas, new practices, but others couldn't. Eventually, the government decided it would insist, and so Edward VI and then Queen Elizabeth insisted that people followed the new way of religious life. And so they passed laws against being a Catholic, laws against being a priest, laws about going to Mass. You couldn't do any of these things. Priests couldn't be trained in this country anymore. And so anyone who wished to be a priest and thought that's what God wanted them to do had to go to France or Spain or, of course, to Rome. But many of them loved their country very much and decided they wanted to come back and wanted to try and keep the old faith alive. But they were persecuted. They were hunted down. They were followed around the country. There was all sorts of suspicions, all sorts of plots and schemes to try and catch such people. And when they were caught, they were tried, they were condemned almost always, and then they were executed in a very brutal way. Lots of these priests travelled around the country, mostly on horseback, of course, and they couldn't appear in public. And so they had to go and live in outhouses and sheds and shelters. But there were some Catholic families who made room for priests in their homes. And this gave priests an opportunity to rest and to pray and to study and generally to try and renew their strength, their energy, so that they could go out onto the road again. It soon became clear that this is what was happening, and the government decided they'd have to go and try and hunt these priests down. And so it was necessary for hiding places to be built in these houses. Hiding places in the roof, perhaps in the cellar, under the stairs, in cupboards, behind bookcases, all sorts of places. And you need somebody with great skill to do this. And there was a man called Nicholas Owen, whose father had been a carpenter and had shown him real skill about how to do all sorts of carpentry work. And he set himself to do the most important thing of all, to try and build hiding places so that priests would not be captured, would not be caught. Many of you, I'm sure, know about Harvington Hall, very close to us. And there's another one not far from Stratford called Coton Court. And St. Nicholas Owen is supposed to have worked in both of those houses and built hiding places. And it is said that of all the houses that he worked in and all the hiding places he built, no one was ever caught. They were so well constructed, so well built, so well hidden that no one was ever caught. He travelled and he worked mostly at night so that he wouldn't attract attention. He tried to go to Holy Communion before he started his work, And we're told that while he was working, he was praying as well, using all the skills that he had and using his great faith to do what was a wonderful work. And in fact, the government thought he was perhaps the most dangerous man in the country, because he was allowing priests to be hidden, not captured, so that they could go on saying the Mass and doing the teaching that people had needed and wanted over so long. Finally, he himself was caught in this area here at Hindlip Hall outside Worcester, and he was taken to the Tower of London, and he was tortured, so that he could give out secrets to the places where he had built hiding places, people who'd been hidden in these places where Mass was being said. He should not have been tortured, because even in the cruel days of Elizabeth I, those who were not physically very well, like he wasn't, should not have been tortured. But the government saw that he was so valuable, so important, that they were going to try any means they could to get him to tell the secrets of where his hiding places had been built and who'd been in them and where they were. The torture that he underwent was so severe that he died under torture. But just as none of his hiding places were ever found, he didn't give away any secrets at all. As you know, he has been the patron saint of the academy to which this school belongs. And unfortunately, his name is going to disappear now as a new academy is being built. But we mustn't let the memory of this wonderful saint ever go out of our minds. And so, if you have a chance always to go to Harvington, not far from here, and visit Harvington Hall, and you'll see in Harvington Hall all sorts of hiding places. One imagines even you, clever as you are, wouldn't be able to find them. None of the followers of the priest were able to find them in their own day. But also it's worth going into the little church at Harvington too, because on the wall there are two beautiful brass statues. One is of the martyr of Harvington, St. John Wall, but the other is of Nicholas Owen, and it shows part of a house with the side taken away so that you could see in intricate detail all the kind of places that Nicholas Owen chose to build his hiding places. The very fact that Mass continued to be said all through those years, and priests were able to come and go fairly safely, and all sorts of altar vessels and books and things could be hidden, is all down to one man, Nicholas Owen, using the skills that God had given him to enable people to be safe in the practice of their faith. So we ask him now to help us to use the skills that we've got, the abilities that God has given to us, so that we too may be of service to him and to his church. And we ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.